Okay, thank you, Todd. And thank you to everybody who sent in questions ahead of time. I think we'll be able to address a lot of your questions in our presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about communication and revenue, switch it over to Matthew, who will go more into events, virtual and live, let you know what we're thinking, and then we'll kind of both come back together for the last 5 minutes to talk about kind of over the curve, planning for next fiscal year and what comes next. I was seeing by a lot of your questions, we all seem to be in the same boat. So, and Todd, it was interesting to see the survey results. So we'll jump in here, and Matthew and I actually, I think I became first aware that something really big is happening with COVID-19 when he and I had gone up to St. Cloud to research a couple of venues for an event in July. And one of those was the Stearns History Museum, hi Carrie, and another venue was the Paramount Theater. And meeting the director at the Paramount, I went to shake his hand, and he pulled his hand back and said to me, oh, are we still doing that yet? And this was the week before we all started working from home. So they also had signs up from the Minnesota Department of Health already at the Paramount Theater. So it was a very strange, surreal kind of visit. We've had to since pull the plug on a few events like everybody else, and we've had to switch gears and pivot hard with our communications for members. So we'll talk about how we did that. We have always known that membership is an important revenue stream for MNHS. So we're one of the few viable streams that have been able to keep running in the face of all of this since mid-March. Our events, as we say, we had to start thinking differently about them, how we could deliver. So we've built some good models and done some research. And then we've been looking forward as a team when we reopen, how we reopen. So we'll go through that. Slide, Matthew. So a little bit first about how MNHS membership fits in to MNHS. Just briefly, MNHS gets a large portion of our budget from the state of Minnesota. We also offer some services for the state of Minnesota, the state archives, et cetera. We get about 3/5 of that funding from the state, and then membership falls in on the remaining 2/5, private funds, et cetera. And so the membership fees, of course, are just revenue for GOS, and we more than cover our benefit cost. We always show a net revenue. And then members, of course, are our best shoppers. They buy tickets for events. We see upwards of 20, 30, 40% sometimes of our visitors to sites are members. So they are out doing things and activating their memberships. Next slide, Matthew. So in the face of COVID-19, we had to pivot fast. Part of our membership brand promise, if you will, is to keep members informed about what's going on. They have first chance to see things sometimes, exclusive member events, but always what's going on with MNHS, stay in touch. We had a print magazine that we would deliver 3 times a year, mostly talking about events and programs. And since there were going to be a very reduced number of events and programs, and also due to budget freeze, to be very careful with remaining budget. Sorry, there's a phone ringing in our office. We had to pivot away from the print magazine. That was supposed to go out the last week in April. Instead, what our marketing department decided to do was rely on the e-news, send it out more frequently. That goes out weekly, and then also beef up MNHS social media presence. Some members are subscribed, but not all. So that was one thing we had to contend with. Also, snail mail. We had been used to sending our renewals out every month to the tune of about 4,000 quantity to members expiring. And we had that set up with a vendor. We would send over electronic data. We had to put a freeze on those operations and instead pivot to email and phone. So we've done that. Instead of sending data to the mail house on paper forms, going bulk rate mail, we had to figure out how to build with our new Tessitura CRM system and our new WordFly email platform for the first time ever e-renewals. It was something we had on our to-do list anyway, but now we had to do it fast. We were successful in doing that, and we've kept our renewals on track. So in the space of about 3 weeks, a team came together to kind of retinker everything and figure out which data fields could pull over into our email. We crafted a message with our marketing team. We pushed out our first wave of monthly e-renewals on April 7th, and that was right on schedule, actually a week ahead, and that felt really good. We did our second wave here now, the May 6th. May 6th. We'll do it again in June. So we got monthly renewals on track. The thing is, we're only able to reach about half of our membership base because we don't have emails for everybody. So that continues to be a work in progress. We also developed thank yous, and we've been able to send out a thank you message specifically to each member every Friday. We can't get a card into their hand. We had been used to sending weekly cards, but we are promising a 15-month membership, and once we are able to get back into the office, we will do a big catch-up mailing of member cards. In the meantime, we've directed them to use their membership benefit of the shopping discount online. And there's not a lot they can do online right now, but we're, again, just kind of thanking them for the support, et cetera. So those processes got plugged in, and it's worked so well that we're now going to do a lapsed member appeal as well in May. And we did send out a community gifts ask a couple of weeks ago as well. And there is a larger campaign again that's going to be going late May, early June. That's a more intensive fundraising campaign that my colleague Jen Pagachnik is putting together called Help History. So we are asking. If we don't ask, we won't get revenue. We want to keep our revenue streams going, and everything we're hearing from webinars and things is to kind of keep them going on a regular basis. But like I've just been talking, we have some gaps. We're not able to reach all of our members by email as well. We're not able to send thank yous to everybody who's sending in membership renewals because some of those things are still coming in to the office through the snail mail. So we're catching a list of who those people are, and we will follow up with them. So we are also working to capture emails. We are devising a postcard that will go in the mail next week. This will be the first time that we are doing a communication to all of our members, specifically as the membership audience. And that will make me feel really good because we want members to know that we're thinking of them, they're important to us until we can welcome them at our sites. Please share your email address with us for updates. It's the only way we can be in touch right now. So we'll see how many we can capture from that, and then we'll be doing the manual job of adding those email addresses to the records. The important thing is keeping this going on a regular schedule. Again, we've been hearing that from a lot of museums across the country, et cetera. And it feels kind of right. It feels like the right thing to do. The other last part of our operations that have really, been important and of course been impacted like everybody else, our box office right now is kind of closed down with a furlough. But we had been forwarding our membership phone to them on weekends. But so we pulled back on that. But we have our membership customer service phone line and our membership email running. Thank you in wholly for Matthew, his good work. He is checking the voicemail daily and returning calls with his cell phone, which is no small feat, and then also checking the membership email as well. So we're able to, respond to those members in real time. The volume has slowed way down, but there are still members who need help with things. Next slide, Matthew. All right, so I mentioned phone briefly, and we have members at different levels, like I'm sure most of you do as well too. We've got our basic level members at the introductory. That's the largest portion of our membership, thousands of people. And then we have our mid-level supporting members, and there are hundreds of them. And then there are the top level membership supporters, our North Star Circle, starting at $1,200 annually. Much more kind of boutique-y experience, much more kind of personalized treatment. And our gift officers have stepped up to the rescue, and they have been calling all of the North Star Circle members, capturing more email addresses, asking for renewed gifts and saying thank you. And they keep reporting back how much this group of people really loves hearing from us. MNHS is important to our members, and so they're able to make that personal contact. They're also doing some calling for us at the supporting levels. Again, there are hundreds of those. They're capturing more emails or asking for renewed gifts, and they're able to make thank you calls to them directly. The introductory levels are simply too many to call. So that's why we're relying on the e-renewals and capturing more email addresses with the postcard. We will try to do some phone calls, but we're pretty limited to how many we can make. Next slide. This I threw in. I had done a presentation about membership a while ago, just to show you kind of how COVID has impacted us again too. This goes more to our revenue stream now. FY 2000, the bottom two levels of that bar, if you will, History Center sales and historic site sales. And until 2006, we weren't charging admission at the History Center. But so 2006, sales for memberships were about on par for History Center and historic sites. More than half of our membership sales were coming in from those sources. FY 12, we started flirting with the Groupon deal. So that large yellow bar at the top, that's a huge Groupon and also a smaller Living Social campaign. We started testing more with a digital third party, if you will, to bring in more members. And that year we had over 5,000 new members come in. FY19, our most recent last fiscal year, you can see the bottom two squares, green History Center, yellow historic sites, are about holding steady as they had been going back to about 2006. Not a lot of variation there. It really ties to all the visitors coming in. About half of our memberships every year are coming in from those sources. And the green bar at the top, that is my, that's really encouraging to see that we have done more work with web and digital and working with partners like the Star Tribune and Surly Brewing. We did a little test. So we are able to push out emails and ask people to join that way. Now we have to switch gears going forward. So now it's going to be changing, and we've lost all of our on-site sales. So that's a big pivot for us that we have to figure out. Next slide, Matthew. All right, so the revenue stream, something that also impacts that is the benefit delivery. I just mentioned, our sites are closed, and so members can't get around to visit us. They also buy things from our stores. Our stores are closed. You can do online shopping, but it's right now books only. Again, the staffing has contracted so much that our store can't push out merchandise. Nobody can be in the building, so they're relying on our publishers to help ship out books. Ticketed events, that revenue stream just dried right up right now. There have been some public events tested virtually. Site admission, again, for us is one of the primary reasons people support MNHS, but we also know it's a very philanthropic gift. They really believe in the quality of our work, and so they just want to support that. To help try to bridge this, in March, we came up with an offer, and you've probably heard of other organizations doing other offerings around membership. How do we cover this pause, if you will? For us, it felt good, and it felt like the right amount of time to start offering a 15-month membership for anybody who's renewing or joins as new between now and June 30th. Now, as we get closer to June 30th and understand more about reopening, we may have to then bump that to the end of July. But right now, the offer is good through the end of June for anyone who's normally renewing, anyone who joins now, and then anyone who reaches out to us and asks about their membership. So some people, we've had a few requests for a refund, but not many, and Matthew can speak to that more at the end when we wrap up. This feels like it's been a good bridge, and I've heard that echoed at I know there are other museums across the country offering that same thing. The Minnesota Zoo did not offer anything like that. They already have a 13-month renewal offer in play. They didn't want to mess up with that. What the Science Museum did with renewing everybody, and there's my time, felt like a little excessive to us. They automatically offered one extra month for all of their members across the board, no questions asked. That didn't feel right to us. We had the benefit of I guess if you will, learning from the 2011 temporary shutdown, in that we did the same kind of membership extension at that time, and it worked pretty well. We know that people are waiting to see what we'll be doing. We know that there's expectation out there. So we're very mindful of that, and we're monitoring this closely, and we will augment this as we need to. We know that there's going to be some shortfall with revenue in the last quarter of FY21, which for us is July 1 through June 30th, because we've extended these memberships. But we're thinking that we should be able to make that up elsewhere, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes. Next slide, Matthew. And I'm almost done with my part, so I will whip through these last slides quickly. So the membership revenue stream, normally MNHS audiences are where we get our members and our donors from. But now, that feed has really cut down quite a bit because we're not able to welcome people at our sites. We've pretty much put acquisition efforts on hold. I was going to do a spring campaign with direct mail that still works for us and bolster that with Facebook ads and an email follow-up. That all got put on hold. It didn't feel right to do that right now. The brand promise is tricky with acquisition. We are still seeing new members filter in though, which, I have to dig into that and see where they're coming from, but it's just fascinating and great. What's important right now are bonding, and what things we can work on with that are the relationship. We can still ask members to make donations. Our members feed our donor pool in large part for MNHS, and we can reach out more to our lapsed members. They know us, they've been with us before. So we'll keep working what we can. Next slide, Matthew. So just briefly, our traditional marketing is on hold for acquisition. There's a nice shot of our History Center welcome desk. How will we welcome members, or how will we welcome visitors when we're able to reopen? So that's kind of a big question, and I know everybody's looking at that right now. I just wanted to throw that slide in there because we've got such a great team who's been doing all these sales for us on sites. Next slide. So more digital social media. Again, we can do renewal and rejoin campaigns. Internally, we can work with our marketing department to see if we can do some Google ads or Facebook ads to help bolster those efforts. We have to keep working on our email address capture. That's really important for us. And then we're working with our partners in strategic communications and IT about all of this. So I've been talking a lot about processes to help keep the membership revenue stream going. And it's not easy. Some days, these little breakthroughs are great. Other days it feels like, oh my gosh, how will we ever figure this out? So again, we'll share some resources at the end too that have been really helpful, but we've got a great team. We just keep meeting, we just keep talking about it and knowing that it's an important stream for MNHS. But now Matthew will talk the next section about events because they are a huge part of the member experience at MNHS. So Matthew, take it away.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm just including this slide that made me laugh because my laptop camera is broken and I can only do audio Zoom meetings lately, so I just love this slide a lot. I should also say I'm a new dad and I have a toddler running around, and my wife is also got an important meeting at the same time, so we're doing the best we can. If you hear some noises in the background, hopefully my son doesn't try to become part of the presentation. So here we go. I'm going to talk a little about MNHS events for our members and donors. I want to discuss what's worked well for us and how we're pivoting to create virtual events going forward. Just as Rhonda was saying, 3/5 of our funding is public funding. It comes from the state of Minnesota, but membership is an important and critical source of revenue for the organization with over 33,000 members. And what's crucial is our membership program feeds the donor program. So on the access side of things, that is what we offer. It's one of the key benefits we offer to members and donors who support us. And this, of course, this is common for most museums and cultural orgs out there, and I'm sure a lot of you do this too. For our normal events, and we're talking pre-COVID-19, we plan exclusive stewardship events for members and donors by providing special access to our institution's assets. And we give our donors access to MNHS collections with behind the scenes tours. We give them access to our curators and our book authors through talks. We give them special access to our 26 historic sites. And of course, if there's ever a new exhibit, we make sure that members and donors are the first to see it. It's especially our events, we make sure that those exhibits that will have members and donors come in, like on a Thursday night for a 2-tiered preview event, and then the exhibit would open up like on a Saturday to the public. So seeing things first is really important. Also, we always try to give our members and donors the opportunity to engage with our experts, with our curators and our conservators. So one-on-one access is a huge perk for donors. And now that MNHS is pivoting towards digital programming, access is an important consideration and is still a top priority. So in planning our virtual events, we want to keep that access as a benefit. And how do we do that? We make sure that in our virtual events, there's an opportunity for Q&A with the guest speakers. And we also, again, want to make sure that our members and donors see things first if there's going to be a virtual talk. So this is all what we're developing and trying to push forward, but we are in the midst of all the planning, as I'm sure you are as well. So with the coronavirus, museum professionals around the world are working quickly to develop digital programming to keep their audiences engaged, their donors engaged. And from the research that Rhonda and I have been doing, the national trend with virtual events is that museums and cultural orgs are planning to offer both the live, when we get back into the buildings, into our museums, we'll be offering the live in-person events, and we'll also be offering the virtual events to our audiences going forward simultaneously. So, so it doesn't seem like these virtual events will be going away anytime soon. And it seems like this is also an opportunity going forward to develop new programs that are more suitable for virtual programming that we can put on our website or on our Facebook page. So now talking in the context of the special access, with the pre-pandemic days at MNHS, we would have a new exhibit opening. We would offer these preview events. We would have, of course, the food and drinks and the program elements that complement the exhibit. We'd have live music and socializing. And we offer those the same night. I already said that. Even though it's kind of tough, we try not to kill ourselves. So when we're planning the virtual events, we want our members and our donors to be able to see and experience those digital programs first. We would live stream the event first, or do like a Zoom meeting, and then we would webcast a recording of that on our website or our Facebook page at a later time. So it's okay if the non-member audience gets access to that special exclusive virtual event for your members and donors. It's okay for them to look at that on your website later. It's just, there's actually very little harm done in the grand scheme of things. But it seems like we all have to get on board with the digital programming going forward. So to tell you a quick story, Rhonda and I, MNHS has its annual meeting every fall, and it's a big event, and we always deal with capacity issues of our auditorium that holds 330. And so over the last several years, we have always live streamed the event into overflow classrooms in the same museum at the History Center. So that's been really helpful just to learn how it all works and how the rehearsals and testing is so important. At last year's annual meeting, we live streamed our program in the auditorium with a guest speaker. So I should mention that our annual meetings, in order to help get people in the seats and help drive attendance to the annual meetings, we incorporate a guest speaker program. So that's why they're so, one of the reasons they're so full. So last fall, we the live stream, we had a number of live stream locations out on the North Shore, at 2 harbors at Split Rock Lighthouse. We had we streamed it to the Oliver Kelly Farm in Elk River and a site in Rochester, and we had just many streaming or live stream viewing parties out there, and we're able to reach a lot more of our members that way. So the live streaming, the virtual events, it does create, it opens up some opportunities. But what we learned from the experience was that the rehearsal and the testing and all of the technology side of things is, there can be hiccups. So you definitely have to do a lot of rehearsing and testing if you're going to do something like that. Fortunately, audiences right now are very forgiving, and there is a learning curve. But I think as things go on with more and more virtual events, I'm guessing the audiences will be somewhat less forgiving. I've already caught, maybe in the last couple of weeks, 3 different live stream programs or virtual programs that are webinars that didn't start on time, or there were technical issues. So it's something that all of us are just dealing with, and again, audiences are very forgiving. So I wanted to talk about research and trends and kind of a virtual events 101, just to get you thinking about virtual events. So in terms of research and trends, Ron and I have a weekly diet of about 2 to 4 webinars, and it's been kind of rigorous getting up to speed and finding out what all the national museums are doing and different strategies. But I wanted to talk about virtual events and kind of like what to think about when you're planning a virtual event. So we've got the 5 W's to virtual event planning, just like the 5 W's to planning any event. But what makes this a little different is, okay, so obviously, why are we creating a virtual event? It's just a way to keep our donors and members engaged. Who is your audience? And like the Minnesota Historical Society, we do have a lot of older Minnesotans, and so they may not be as computer savvy. So that's something that I think all of us are sort of wrestling with, is how to reach them. But maybe they can get their kids or grandkids to get them up to speed, because this seems like it's going to be kind of how we make our touch points for quite a while now. So asking the question of what type of virtual event is it then? Is it a presentation or a panel discussion? If you can just present yourself. Rhonda and I saw there was a really nice presentation by an executive director at a National Art Museum who just presented for 8 minutes on a new acquisition of artwork, and she did it from her living room, and she had slides that were images of the artwork, and it was great. For only 8 minutes, it was a perfect way to engage your audiences and reach your donors, and also acknowledge the gifts. So just things to think about. What is the content? Think about the audience experience, and maybe you can use a survey to find out what they want to hear from you about, or think about what, if you need to film something, the quality of the experience for them. Like if you want to invest just $30 in buying a microphone, it would make all the difference. And hopefully you don't have a toddler in the background. And then we want to talk about what are the learning objectives. This is, we kind of get in the habit of not thinking about learning objectives, but that is ultimately what do you want people to walk away with? What do you want them to do, or what do you want them to know? And it just kind of helps you stay focused and organized, and helps you edit, the content if you need to strip things away that don't really need to be there. So then getting into when will your audience be available with these virtual events? Hopefully we're not going to be scheduling something that's going to interfere with any distance learning at home. what MNHS often does is we find a weeknight, and weeknights seem to work best for us. And then we want to talk about how many participants to expect, and this helps inform your decision making on the type of virtual platform, because if you're if you do your research, you'll find that there are limitations to the different platforms and subscriptions, and you never want to leave someone out if you reach your capacity for a virtual event. So it also helps when you're talking about the participants. It's really important to have RSVPs just so you can know how many guests will attend, and also it helps you choose the virtual platform, and it just helps you communicate with them. If you have the opportunity to get have them ask questions in advance, it will help inform the presentation and help inform that content. And I'm sure Todd Mahan could teach us all about all of these things, putting this whole day together. So then jumping to the promotion and everything, you with the RSVP process, you'll be asking questions, again, like what they want to hear in advance. And if you have an opportunity to include snippets of the content, that's a great way to promote the event. And when we're talking about promotion, give your audience time to get to know about the webinar. Things seem to be moving so fast these days, where it's just like you expect to try to put something out there in 2 weeks and have inform your members and donors about it. And but it's still, I think things need to slow down a little bit, and you need to give at least a month for your audience to know about something and get it on their calendars. So, don't forget as well, if you're planning a series of virtual events, don't forget to promote the next event live during the current event, or share a link to the next event. Since you already have your audience there and they've shown interest, you can just try and keep that momentum going. What else? Just in terms of the virtual platform considerations, then, without, I want to stay purposely agnostic about the different platforms and not tell you that Zoom is better than Facebook or Google, but things for you to research is some of the platforms, they might be free, but they come with limitations, like you can only present for 45 minutes, or there are caps on the number of attendees, like I said a second ago. And options that have been really important to us in planning our virtual events is the chat feature. So we want the Q&A part, the interactive component of our events, and especially for the donor audience, it just makes them feel more engaged. And that chat feature, ideally the attendees would just be typing questions on the chat tool on the side of your virtual platform. But if you have them live, if you have your guests live, it does live a camera view of them, of your it does take up some of the bandwidth of your internet, so that's something to look out for. And then you want to think about polls. Like, another way to engage your members is through polling. Some of these virtual platforms like Zoom allow you to do just a short little survey, a box, one question, that multiple choice question that just pops up on the viewer's window. But that's something to look for as well. And then finally, when we have our presentation pulled together, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to run through things more than once is helpful. Practice your transitions if there's a slideshow, and then always come up with a contingency plan. Going forward, I just think with all this technology, we should just always plan for things might not go as planned, right? I mean, that's the way any event is to begin with, but with technology being another variable, it's just something to think about. And if you want a more polished presentation, you could record yourself in advance and try different camera angles and give some thought to what's in the background. Make sure your wardrobe doesn't match what's in your background, or else you'll kind of be washed out. So there's those kind of things. That's about it for me. And Ron and I are happy to talk about events in the Q&A part of the presentation.
Thanks, thanks, Matthew. I'm hoping you can all hear me again. So just some closing thoughts about moving ahead, thinking ahead. I wanted to just offer a couple of other tidbits. Our team with Matthew, we have done a lot of brainstorming internally about how we can take existing offerings, existing in-person events, and pivot those to be virtual. We have built up a whole kind of cadre, if you will, of possible virtual events to put forward. And we felt like we needed to run hard at that, not knowing, how much MNHS would contract and close down, and we've had furloughs, et cetera. So we've had to put some of these event ideas that we have developed and researched on hold until we can start to reopen. But we'll be ready to go as soon as we get the green light. But we need our partners in our marketing area. We need our partners in our collections area, and we can't do these solo. So it's all a teamwork and just kind of balancing that. Attend events too, if you will, and just see how they work, and think about what your members and donors would like to experience, and kind of put those things forward. Okay, so over the curve, looking, thinking about this presentation today, and I just attended another webinar yesterday. Again, we'll share those in our resources. And I was encouraged to hear that really you've got the building blocks to think through what your member experience is going to look like upon reopening. There are so many unknowns, but if you kind of focus on what is your organization's mission, and then what do you know about your audiences? What motivates those audiences? And especially in the time of COVID, what is motivating people? MNHS took part in a culture track survey. Over 750 organizations across the country participated. So once that information gets back, we'll be able to get a sense of people in their homes, what they're thinking of in terms of COVID and culture experiences. And so that's what the survey is getting at. So that'll be informative. We all have, varying degrees of technology, tools, and data. Use those. I don't know which county society it was, but somebody was walking around. This was a few weeks back, early on. 2 people around historic site buildings, and one person had their phone, and the second person had the iPad. I'm guessing was recording it. So that was an experience. I think Ramsey County Historical Society has already put out some virtual tours, that kind of thing. So use your technology as you can, I guess. That's what we're going to be trying to do as well. So that's in our event models. But again, pivoting with the technology, we've had to go from print to email and phone. And so sometimes it's the more traditional tools that come into play, but don't put all your eggs in one basket, I guess. Always best practices, especially now, testing. Throw ideas out there, see if it sticks. That's going to come into play as well with the digitized offerings or the digital offerings you're able to put out there. Do a survey if you can. Just watch the traffic as you can. See what people are grabbing onto, because there's also a movement. People are starting to talk already about monetizing some of these digital experiences. We're not there yet at MNHS, but we're talking about it, and I'm attending a webinar again this afternoon about that very thing, because that'll be a new way to bring in revenue. I mean, we're thinking ideas. Could we do puzzles for sale? Something. Puzzling is a thing. So get those ideas out, test them, see what sticks. We will very much be planning to do a mix of virtual and live events as we reopen. We know we're a ways out from being able to do a large in-person annual meeting, but we've tested a live stream one already. So we can take what we've learned and build on that. And we'll be applying that to our existing models and seeing what we can pivot. So get the customer feedback always, get the staff feedback, talk to your other departments. And then the next section here, museum professional peers, do your research, do the webinars, talk to each other, spy on each other, if you will. I mean, I think some of the best ideas come from all of the good work that we all do across the state of Minnesota. So beg and partner, all of that stuff, and borrow. There will be reopening reopening social distancing plans, shared. I know Target is working on something. Of course, we're partnering with the state of Minnesota, so there will be guidelines there. So we will want to make sure that when we do reopen, we reopen strong, so that we make our customers and our visitors and our members feel comfortable as well as our staff. But just keep it all moving forward. That's kind of we've got the building blocks. We just need to think differently about it and start getting really creative with it. Next slide, Matthew. So some things we've started talking about in our team. We've created our FY21 reopening Google Doc that we're working on, and because our new fiscal year starts July 1. But we know we're thinking about, what do members want? What do they expect? What are they used to? What can we deliver? We're not sure what our budget's going to look like yet. We know our revenue is way down. But what can we offer them? What is at the heart of MNHS? These are some of the best customers we have. We want to keep them engaged. We need to keep them interested and wanting to support us and seeing the good work that MNHS does. Even with COVID, our colleagues are doing some amazing work. So virtual on-site events, we'll want to track how those work. We'll want to survey how those work. After the annual meeting, we sent out a survey because it was our first live stream. So, and we got, some feedback. We'll probably think about doing time ticketing. We'll have to probably limit the number of people that can go to some of our sites. What would that look like? We can do time ticketing. We can figure that out. If we can offer things members first, that is great. Again, these are important customers, but we would develop things that members could maybe experience first and then share it with the public like the next week. There are a lot of museums across the country doing that same kind of model already. The members also make a good test audience, so you can have them be guinea pigs. Members only hours, members only days. We'll see. What's your capacity going to look like? That's going to be different for all of our organizations. Communication is key to all of this. Managing expectations, not over-promising. You never want to under-deliver. And then, of course, just really relying on the feedback. Next slide, Matthew. So then kind of closing thoughts, again, go back to your mission. Mission of MNHS right now is using the power of history to transform lives. If you've been to our website lately, you've seen the new History at Home. That is a model that's used everywhere. The Tenement Museum in New York City, they are doing history at home. Everybody's doing history at home, finding new ways for people to experience your unique museum or organization. History is Now is the work underway to collect and document what's happening to everybody right now through COVID. I think Stearns History Museum is doing a similar effort. I thought I heard that promoted on the news earlier this week. You're going to need to establish new measures of success. This is where it gets tricky. We're just starting to grapple with this now, but those numbers and those stats are all going to look different. And then communicate, test, thank, and repeat. That's really what that boils down to. Next slide, Matthew. Okay, so here we have resources, and Matthew, jump in with these too. But these have been really helpful. Membership consultants, the lady Dana Hines that runs this has been doing this work for 30 some years. And she does an annual survey of most of the big art museums across the country. And I know we're not art museums, but there are so many parallels between a history organization, any place with a museum, any place with collections to show. There are similarities, and it's a very valid way to stay in touch. Membership Consultants not only works with art museums, but also zoos and aquariums. That's their website. They do, now they've signed up, or they've set up a special COVID-19 email string as well, but they've got blogs, they bring in experts, etc. Colleen Dillenschneider has Know Your Own Bone, and that's a blog, and maybe some of you are signed up for her as well, but she's got surveys measuring, she's in touch with audiences, so she puts a lot of survey information out there that's helpful. AAM, Dispatches from the Future of Museums, that's a nice kind of, I think it's a weekly e-newsletter as well. I saw something in there earlier this week even about something I'm going to sign up for. Yale University has a class called The Science of Well-Being, and just to help us all cope with COVID-19 ups and downs. But they've got a lot of valuable membership information and revenue information as well. Wilkening Consulting has PDFs of what members might want, what visitors might want. And then Membership Mondays, this has been huge. We've had a lot of good discussion following these webinars. It's a weekly webinar on Mondays. It's run by QZM, which is some kind of data, consulting group. But they have been featuring museum professionals from all over the country. Even yesterday was the British Museum. And they're really chewing through top of mind topics. So those are very worthwhile. I'll be attending one this afternoon. I would also say, just who do you like? For years, I've gone to the Henry Ford website, Chicago History Museum, Colorado History. Stay in touch with, see what the local orgs are doing, the Minnesota Zoo, the Walker Arts Center, MIA, and then likely just some of the bigger old world stalwarts, the Met. They've got some great things they're doing. What's MoMA doing? You can learn from everybody and each other. So get your regulars, but do your research. That's been really helping us grapple with some of these things. Matthew, if you want to jump in, and then that's all I've got. We might be out of time, or if there's a few short questions.
Okay. Rhonda and Matthew, there's a couple of questions that came up on the chat. I think so it's 10:49 right now, and we've got at 11 o'clock, Anne's going to do her business continuity plan session. So I think we'll try to wrap up at about 10:55 just to give folks a chance to use restrooms and get coffee and stuff like that. But there are a couple of questions in there that are related to MNHS accessing its sites and buildings. And I just want to say that some of those are probably will come up a little bit in the maybe in Anne's session on business continuity plan, but also a little bit in the 2 o'clock session on collections management stuff. So I think I'll just sort of let those sort of stand for now, and those will come up later. But more directly to the this Nicole Elzinga, excuse me, asked if there's specific wordage for renew and rejoin campaigns that you might suggest, and to maybe interpret for Nicole, or maybe assume a little bit. I think a lot of us are sort of like wonder, how do you phrase that there's a need for the organization when the people that you're going to probably have some financial impacts from what's going on as well.
What I'm seeing and what we've been doing and what we've been very careful to try to do, using phrases like, if you are able, we still need your support, but we are not an emergency cause. We are not a social service agency, and we are very mindful of that. There's all of those very real needs going on. So we are trying to soften the language, just kind of, we're here, we're still doing our work. Our work is still important. It's not on crisis level or anything like that. But if you are able, your support means more than ever right now. So we've tried to soften our language a little bit. We've never been kind of a hard-hitting, if you will, but we've been trying to be kind of upbeat and transparent and, at the same time, very pragmatic about everything that's going on. Nicole, we can follow up offline too, and I could even share, some other thoughts about that.
Great, thanks. And then so Cynthia was asking if there's any statistics on offering reciprocal memberships between MNHS and county museums, kind of a specific question.
And I'm not understanding kind of, there aren't really any stats. So maybe Cynthia, maybe we could follow up. later today and do like a little chat, because I'm not really clear on the question. We're part of the time travelers, but I don't know that we've done reciprocal memberships with MNHS.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's not been something that MNHS has done before, and that the county historical societies have partnered with as a former county historical society director. Amanda is asking about, and this is kind of from Matthew's part of the presentation, about moving events to virtual platforms, and generally the questions about absorbing the costs to Zoom for a corporate account has a cost to it, and then how that's been accounted for, or how you might want to account for it. Do you pass those fees on to members, to attendees, things like that?
We don't. And in fact, virtual events just seem like, in lieu of the live in-person events that have catering costs, and you're hiring musicians and all of that, AV, those costs. What you're paying for Zoom is often a monthly subscription fee of anywhere from $15 to maybe a little bit higher, like $50, and it just seems like, since you don't have those other event expenses, that it does seem worthwhile. But we're not quite there yet ourselves.
Okay, thanks for that, Matthew. And then